So as David alluded to, we're going to kind of focus on kind of three parts of today's demo. We're going to start with Copilot, so showing what you can do within Microsoft's, Copilot as part of Power BI. Then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the semantic model and the importance of the semantic model and what that kind of looks like from an enterprise level. And then we'll kind of showcase if you're, Databricks, with Genie and showcasing kind of how to leverage, Genie on top of, enterprise data as well. So if you open up Power BI, right, and you might start seeing Copilot various places. So when you come to, let's say, the home page, you'll notice on the left there's a Copilot, right? So if you choose Copilot on the left, you'll notice that you can make a prompt. Now, if you think about it, this is literally going to be a prompt that goes across whatever is in your whole Power BI ecosystem, right? So you can go ahead and specify, and I'd always recommend that the thing to remember, regardless of, the tool, is think about, that the semantics, think about context and focus. So we found you get the best results the more you can focus and target your kind of prompts and requests. So for instance, maybe you pick a semantic model, a Power BI semantic model, right? Or you can actually specify a report. And so, when you pick on one of those, now it's going to narrow down some of that. So that way, you're giving AI something that it can work with much easier, and it's probably less likely to kind of hallucinate. So I typically don't do much Copilot at that screen because you kind of need to kind of really provide it um, and specify, report or semantic model. But if I go to, let's say, an app, and if I open up, let's say, a construction app here, right, you'll notice there's a Copilot on the left, right? When you click on that Copilot, now an app, if you're familiar with that in Power BI, it's literally you're taking a dashboard and set of reports and providing those already for consumer purpose, right? They can still analyze and drill and so on. But now when you go to the app, you're now just limited to the reports in that app. So you're automatically, it's already going to start narrowing it for you. But if you pick a specific report and then choose Copilot upper right, this is where I do 90% of my Copilot in Power BI because it's by default already doing the work for me. So, okay, I'm looking at this data. There's a lot of KPIs here. How do I make sense of this? And if you're first time to Copilot, I recommend picking one of these, what's this report page about? And it'll kind of give you some good insights. I'm going to go ahead and post a chat in here. Um, in this case, I'm a construction field operations manager, want to provide the project managers working for me with some specific actions they can take to improve the financial health of our company. I specifically hope to instill with them a sense of how their work impacts the bottom line. I want to be able to play a role of a construction financial expert. And based on the KPIs on this page, recommend, what are three things that they can focus on. So this is what we want to think about. How do you use AI to create action? Right? You can always do, oh, go give me sales by product, or, that's kind of easy, but having it be more strategic is where we really like to kind of see your focus. And as you click through, I wanted to point out two things. It'll go through its process of finding information. You also notice AI generated content may be incorrect. So I'm starting to see that little flag everywhere, right? I think people realize, Kelly mentioned deterministic, right? AI is non-deterministic, meaning that I could take that same prompt, I could basically post it 10 times in a row. I will never get the same answer twice. Maybe hopefully some of the values that come back because it's reading from a report and the semantic model are right. But the way that it kind of comes up with the recommendations of the story might be totally different. So here it's interesting, and I'm not going to read all of these, but it's pointing out the receivables, giving my values. It's telling me, what are some of these PM project manager actions to take and the importance of that. If we go and then look at under billings versus equity. So again, we can go through and it highlighted the top three, gave me some good information to share with the project managers to help them kind of focus. And then maybe it's even asking more based on this analysis. What are these areas that we should focus on first, right? And then it kind of gives me those details. So this is now you could take this as part of that changing people's jobs and how they spend their time. And for some people, they might know this already, but you're always going to have a workforce that spans, levels of experience. So this is a great way to get everybody kind of rowing the boat the same direction and so on. So that in a nutshell was kind of um, with Copilot. I wanted to point that out just as an introduction there. So next, I wanted to kind of take a quick peek at a semantic model. So for a lot of companies that we speak with that have using Power BI, and we'll ask them, how many reports do you have? And they'll say, we have 700 reports. So, okay, well, how many data models and semantic models do you have? And it's dozens, if not hundreds, right? It just becomes this world. That makes building AI on top of those models difficult. So we like to kind of think about centralizing and unifying that data in a semantic model that becomes that source of truth. And then that's how you're going to get the best experience with AI. So this happens to be, you know, a model that I'm connected to. This is our JD Edwards model. You'll notice if I mouse over the tooltip, there's a description of what's the underlying lineage of the data. We can expand some dimensions. You can kind of see, and every client's going to be different on how, what data they're pulling in. This happens to be ERP data, but if you're bringing CRM or, payroll data or whatnot. So again, I had opened this model connected to, let's say, one area like general ledger. David mentioned earlier, right? If we want revenue, we want to make sure that if I'm analyzing revenue and asking I want to provide it some value here. Use this predefined value that's already been governed and already been curated and validated. And that's how you're going to get that consistency, as well as the governance of what should I see, right? You're going to have those layers in the semantic models of the row security and people only seeing what they should. So that's in a nutshell, where this is just some GL data, let's say. If I go out here and open this up, you'll see, well, if I want to go grab some AP data, right? Well, now I've got accounts payable or accounts receivable information. What are some of those as of aging types of? So you really coming up with a really robust model will be a great starting point to kind of have success beyond just BI, but mostly in the AI world. Last thing on this, and then I want to move over to kind of show you a couple things real quick within Genie is, you'll notice here the model. If I look at all tables, lots of different relationships, lots of different things. So you're going to have that world. Again, you want to make sure that you're setting this up right. You've got the right resources and the right, knowledge and domain to make sure that comes together accurately. So for not just BI, but also AI. So here's where I've just taken this is one model, but if I look at the accounts payable view, that's just the elements around AP or AR or GL, sales, and so on. So I want to pull this up because what we did, we already have this governed model for Power BI, but we know within Genie and Databricks, we do a lot within the Databricks from a lakehouse perspective. We use Claude to analyze a semantic model around Power BI and actually have it build the metric view layer, which is a semantic model within Databricks, right? So we already had the definitions of those measures. We already had the relationships and the dependencies. We already had the context, and we use that to basically create that on the Genie side. So let's take a quick peek at Genie, and then I'll pass it back to David. So within Genie, again, it's just now for Databricks, you go to Databricks 1, right? That might be the more consumer interface, so you're not, being overloaded with some of the underlying, screens of the lakehouse. So if I would put in a prompt here, as of a sales, this now over sales data, and now it's just going to start pretty simple, right? I said, what if I want just some information, like what are 2025 sales and gross profit by month and product group and region for a specific company? Hit go. It's going to go ahead and think, and it's going to come back. It's going to kind of tell you what assumptions it's making, right? It can be pretty smart as you dive into it. I go and here it summarizes some information, and there'll be a data table below. So it kind of comes back with some good information. And then you can also, what's nice is that you can actually, it'll show me the code that you came up with. Now, not all users and consumers will understand how to read, obviously, SQL and code, but it's nice that it's there to provide that context for you. So that's kind of where it's pulling from the lakehouse based on those medallion layers, silver, or gold, which if your metrics view in Databricks would be that gold layer there. Right, and then maybe want to expand to some of these tables. You can also, it'll provide a little visual. You can edit that. Maybe I want to make that a pie chart instead of a heat map, right? So that's just like pretty much table stakes there. Now let's go ahead and have it do a little bit more. Like let's have it look at, what are some of those positive trends, right? Sales trends, and what are some negative, like in one. And so that you could do that with BI, and somebody could kind of throw that together. But the fact that Genie can kind of do some of that, little more challenging analysis, literally within seconds, is pretty compelling without me having to go ahead and have an analyst go ahead and put that together. So now it's finding the top 5 positive and then the worst and highlighting that, and then we can kind of see that where it does those ranking and builds all that into the layer. I didn't have to really provide it other than what I just asked it in the prompt. Okay. And then let's go ahead and say, okay, well, if you can do that, let's look at and say, just do a quick projection for next year based on the growth rate, right? So we had a 2024 to 2025, by all those combinations by product group and region. Did we grow or did we shrink in each one of those? So if you take at every one of those combinations of grain, what the growth rate or the shrink rate was, and use that, then if I take that and that carries forward into the next year, 2026, so I take 2025 times that prior year growth rate, what will I end up with in 2026? And that's what's kind of, providing what that amount's going to be. So that's kind of where that's fairly compelling. So here's kind of again, just kind of give me some of that. I'm going to move on here to the next one. And here we're just kind of that showing that projected sales based on that assumption. You can kind of see the increasing or decreasing growth rate there. Now, that thing is you can create benchmarks. So in Databricks, for let's say you have some predefined questions, I can choose a benchmark and I can actually specify. So if you know you're going to get repeatability, then it would make sense to kind of set some of those up, right? Not only maybe get the results a little faster, but then it's kind of you're controlling some of what the users may be asking of the data. If you go to the configure on this Genie workspace and go to instructions, you can kind of see, you can give it a lot of information to direct it and know how it should handle certain information and certain assumptions it should make. And what we did is we already had a lot of that defined in our semantic model for Power BI that we used to create these instructions dynamically. So this was kind of an easy to make sure that we're doing in Databricks was matching in Power BI. The last thing here is really just to take it one step deeper, right? So far, we've kind of asked it for some information. We said, take a prior year growth rate and use that to drive a projection, right? But now let's go ahead and give something a little bit more challenging. So what we want to do now is let's pretend, and this exact use case probably isn't really realistic, but it gives you maybe something to think about. So let's say I'm a company and we know our goal is to maximize profitability, right? Probably every company, a lot of companies are that way. So our 2026 financial goal is to maximize profitability. Our management team feels that we can increase average selling price up to 10% on all products, though some products may benefit from a price reduction if it drives more demand to then result in higher profits. Here's some assumptions we gave it. Pricing is going up. Let's say our cost is going up 2% across the board on all products. Based on demand, if we increase average selling price, we're going to have less people buy. So maybe the demand and quantity sold goes down. And if we actually decrease price, we're going to have more people buy, and that's going to drive it up. So if you kind of just play with these assumptions and don't go any less than an 8% drop in price and don't go any more than 10% on the selling price. So that's a lot to kind of take on and say, okay, now with that, if I go ahead and have it go through, it's going to analyze the data and it's going to come back here with a finding, which is interesting. Normally, you'd always think everything's got to go up. It found and it figured out row by row what was that ideal increase or decrease in price to maximize the profitability, if that was really the lever you're trying to trigger. And it actually found in this example, it was better drop from 29 million with total cost of 14 million, gross profit of 14 million. So basically, it's suggesting a sales decrease, but by doing that with the demand, it actually the cost decrease was so compelling that it actually increased profit more. So that was the best combination in that. Again, some people might say, well, you can't decrease, you can only increase as an example. But I wanted to point out, highlights that. And then if I just scroll to the right here, if you scroll down, you got somewhere it says, okay, the average selling price, maximize it at 10% increase. This one's less than 1%. And if I go down, so, it's going to always be the mix. But the fact that it could analyze all that, today someone would have to probably export a bunch of data, go to a spreadsheet and do all that manually. And now, voila, it's like literally within, again, 3 minutes, it gives you something to think about. So I'll one last thing on this is there's also some options, right? If you go in and choose inspect answers, it's really cool. I don't have time to go through it now, but it'll give you literally its full thinking process as it goes through. And so you can validate how it's approaching it, what assumptions it's making in much more depth, and so that's highly recommended to help provide that confidence of what the results are.